You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 471, our breakdown and discussion of the first two episodes of Season 2 of The Bad Batch, The Spoils of War and Ruins of War. And these two episodes where I was pleasantly surprised. I don't know what we'll get into expectations and all that, some kind of a carryover from our final hype episode a little bit later. But I felt like these two episodes gave us, a lot of comedic moments, mayhem, some mischief. The Bad Batch just was kind of back in every way, and I say that as a positive thing. So, speaking of mayhem, mischief, and comedy, Jonesy has joined us tonight. Jonesy, welcome to the show. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, and back in a good way, of course. I hope.
Yes, back in a good way. Yeah, no, I would agree. So,
yeah, no, it's great to be here, man. On a Saturday night, a little bit different for us. A little bit of shake up here, but glad we were able to get this in before another episode went by. But
right.
Yeah, I'm with you though. If I felt differently as I watched these two episodes a couple more times, because my first impression was maybe a little bit underwhelmed, but the more I got into these last two, it'll be fun to kind of hear your thoughts as well about how that kind of changed and the things I paid more attention to and the things I enjoyed more and that came to the forefront more. So
yeah.
That's really exciting. You know what else is really exciting, Albert?
What is that?
Is that our very own Lauren had her Battle of Jeddah review highlighted on slashfilm.com this past week.
Oh, no way. So, I did not know that.
That's right. So Mr. Adam Frazier was kind enough to put her video up on there as kind of a recap of what was going on in Star Wars. So right below the StarWars.com official videos, the monologues and everything, he highlighted her Battle of Jeddah review, which was really exciting to see that front and center, a pleasant surprise, and something we're exceptionally proud of, and really happy to have her on board. And thanks to Adam for that opportunity of putting that on. There's a lot of other great shows on there, of course, as well. But we're looking out for Lauren. So
yeah, no, I mean, and honestly, so I think he's listened to the show for a while now, and it's just great that she's getting the well-deserved attention for those videos. So shameless plug, if you haven't had a chance, cantinacast.com/YouTube. Go watch the review. She's got even more that she's planning right now. So great job. And I love the fact that she was in there. Not only was she listed under the, it was kind of like one of these articles about here are the videos you need to go watch, right? Relevant to the week and kind of what's going on in Star Wars world, Star Wars land. And we had her at, and I said this, and I'm sure that means nothing, but for me, visually seeing the two first posts, or his recommendations were the StarWars.com stuff, right? We get that. But then the very next one was our very own Lauren at the very top and above some of the other bigger shows that do some YouTube content out there. So again, not reading into anything into it.
It was probably alphabetical, but
quiet.
But hey, just to make sure that we're not getting too big in when you go, we'll dial it back a little bit. No, we're super excited and super proud of Lauren though.
Yep.
And she's actually got another video out there too. So it's not just Battle of Jeddah. She's also got Quest for the Hidden City out there, which she absolutely loves it. So you're going to want to make sure you go watch that review as well. She did a fantastic job on that one. So we've actually got two High Republic videos out there right now that came out just in the last few days for Phase 2. As we wrap up Wave 1 and get into Wave 2, we're officially underway. And so go check those out over at cantinacast.com/YouTube.
Yep. And on top of that, we want to take this time to say thank you to all of our Patreon subscribers who are graciously donating money to keep the show going and, fill the pocketbooks of our, no, I'm kidding. It's really going back into the show. I mean, we recently used some of the money to help Lauren get some stuff going for her show and her recordings. So everything we get does go back into the show in the best possible way. So,
right. Yeah. So big thanks over to Mike, Rob, Lauren, Dante, Risk, Justin Jackson, Sharkman, Dan, Daz, and Isabella, of course, that are now part of the Tribe tour. tier. Goodness, there we go.
The tour is coming, but don't spoil that yet. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. The grand tour is coming for the tiers. Yeah. And then Delusions of Grandeur, Rod, Kathy, and Hard Counter. Thank you all so much. If you're interested in checking out Patreon, we would love for you to go do that. All of our special content that we do for Patreon exclusively start at the After Dark tier, which is just a couple of dollars a month. So if you want to take a look at that, and if you want a chance to get on the show and join us for one of those, you have those opportunities as well. But cantinacast.com/Patreon will give you all of the details you need to know. And as a bonus, still there for the holidays, Chewy and the Pugs. Still highlighted and pinned at the top. Yeah, it's gonna go into the vault. Well, I say the vault. It'll just be not pinned here pretty soon. We'll pin something else, but still, I'll give it another few days here before I do that. But you won't want to miss it. We need to figure out a way
to do that to get some of the older Patreon stuff, because it does get buried in there, So it might be worth digging some of that stuff up there and reposting it from time to time, so some of our more recent Patreon members can take advantage of those gems that are just hiding in that big pile of coinage, like Chewy and the Porgs.
Well, I mean, it can't. We were mapping out just recently, the three of us, all of the shows, through really, I guess, almost through May, right? And gosh, I mean, the number 500 came up, and it's almost just unfathomable that we're going to get to 500 shows. I mean, we're pretty close already. If you were to go back and throw the ones in there we didn't number, but
yeah, it's 500 numbered shows, but we've got more,
Right, yeah. But just to say that, just to actually see that number come up is pretty special. And I don't know if you knew this, Albert, but right now it is trending to actually land on May the 4th.
Is it really?
That's the date that we would do our 500 episode, I believe. Yeah. So
yeah,
that's pretty crazy.
I think you're right. I think we did look at that on the calendar. What a coincidence. That was not
that was not planned.
No.
That means we can't miss any shows.
How serendipitous. Yeah, Dale pinged us on this earlier. He says, he's in the chat right now and says 500 is the interview with Mark Hamill. You know what, Dale? I'll give him a call, see if his schedule's free, and we'll let you guys know.
You should lead in that, hey, Mark, my birthday, you have the same birthday as me. Not that you have the same one as him. But yeah.
Right. That'll be the icebreaker.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure that'll be a great one there. And speaking of Dale, and before we get into the show, a huge thanks to everyone who's in the live stream. If you're listening to this, we do a live stream every time. Even though we're on Saturday, we're still doing it. cantinacast.com/YouTube. If you hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell to get notified anytime we're live. We usually do it at 9 p.m. Central Time on Sundays and Thursdays, but a little special one because of the slight hiccup in the schedule. So cantinacast.com/YouTube will get you everything you need to know.
Thank you. All right, well, let's do this. Let's talk about the first two episodes of The Bad Batch Season 2. And as we alluded to in kind of our opening thoughts, comments segment, this was an episode that, so I did use the word, I'll just be candid. I told Jonesy yesterday because it's a little underwhelming. After I watched it the second and third time, I didn't feel the same way. I think I went in with higher expectations. This is always the situation, right?
Yeah.
The headcanon screws with you. You go in, I was on this whole Mount Tantus thing and thinking they were going to just blow the doors open with that out of the gate.
Well, it's the premiere too. Expectations are higher with the premiere, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think with season, I was thinking about this too, with season one of anything, depending on how much hype they've given us and all that, that'll have a certain level. But with like season two, we've gotten past a lot of the basic staple kind of things that you want from story development for the characters, right? And so for me, I was thinking, okay, well, maybe they'll just kind of come in guns blazing, really just focus on some of the bigger storytelling aspects. And I had to check myself, and I did check myself in that second viewing, because really we are still being introduced to the Bad Batch in this new relationship, this different phase with Echo. Omega's a little bit older. And so from that perspective, I had to rethink about it and just ask myself, did these two first episodes do what they needed to do? And unequivocally, they did. I mean, it was really just about, okay, getting us caught up on here they are, who they are, reminders of who they are, a lot of familiar kind of gags and things, Wrecker being the big kid, physically, literally becoming the tank at one point was kind of cool to watch. But yeah, it was kind of almost like a refresher, right, of what's going on, with that little twist at the very end that was like, okay, yeah, we're back to where, there's some juicy stuff that's going to start to expand upon here in a little bit. So from that perspective, yeah, I mean, I thought it did exactly what it needed to do. It still wasn't like amazing in terms of like, oh, this is the best two episodes they've ever done. I think when we look back at it, this may arguably could be some of the I guess the weaker episodes. But again, it's about expectations, right? It's about what did we need to know to get started, and did they pull it off? Did they check all the boxes? Yeah, absolutely. So, and I had fun with the episode. I mean, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Even in the first viewing, it was just great to see them again. It's been so long, and we had that pushback, right? I mean, the reschedule. This was supposed to be out like months ago in the fall of last year, so it's gone longer than expected. So I was pretty happy overall.
Yeah, same. And when I went back and rewatched it, I had an initial reaction similar to yours. It was solid. It was good, but it wasn't really. I don't know what I was expecting. I guess, and I made the comment before about it being a premiere. When we have the premieres, we just assume that you're just going to be punched in the face, right? There's going to be something exceptional right off the bat. And there wasn't really, right? But there were a lot of subtle things. And I think when I step back from it after watching a couple more times, and I think you were alluding to this too, it really is setting up the relationship stage of everything that's going on, right? Omega and Tech. Tech in general, I thought was really a couple of moments for Tech were really good in this episode. I think Echo had his moments too. So some of those are starting to come to fruition even early on. And even if they're in very small batches, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Ooh,
right.
Yes.
But then also with Omega, right. In some of the interview comments that we saw from Michelle Long of saying that, she's maturing, but there's still this innocence about her and this naivete, to her. And we saw that on display in these two first episodes as well. And so those were really hitting the mark. I think those from an emotional and that a bit of gravity to things, you start to feel that, the comments between Echo and Hunter about, the reason why they are the way they are is because of Omega, even though it got misconstrued. I mean, obviously it was still, they were there. Right. And having to work through that. And the way they did it was really, I thought it was really, satisfactory in my opinion, but and we'll talk a little bit more about this next point, but the shaping of Omega's, really her view of perception, intent, and reality. And I think even Tech had a moment of this too. And we'll talk a little bit about that though, about just how they're viewing the world, how they intend to view the world, how they intend to be in the world, but then what is the reality of what they're in, right? And I think Omega was hit with that, really kind of hard and fast right across the face in this one with the war chest, right?
Yeah, and viewing the galaxy really is what you meant.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, and everyone's still. Well, the galaxy's got a long way to come. They'll get there eventually, but they've got a long way to come in that one. But, and I think just a kind of a wrap on the closing comments for me, man, the sound and the music, Clone Wars is back, baby.
Dude, I'm telling you,
Kevin
the animation stuff is just above and beyond the live stuff. I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah, I mean the lighting and everything too. I usually wax all way too much on some of that stuff. Maybe not enough. I don't know. Yeah. But the music and the sound on this episode, dude, I put my headphones on. I was like, this is awesome. I mean, it is just awesome, like through and through. Beautiful, perfect, Clone Wars-esque, really puts you right into it. We haven't missed a beat with the way that it feels. Yeah.
When Wrecker picks up the cannon and fires that sound was awesome to hear. Like just audibly, just hearing it, the memories that it brings back from the Clone Wars, but then they just did such a good job of, you could hear that shot going across the screen. Yeah,
it had a very interesting resonation, like echo to it whenever it shot. It was really cool. Yeah.
And people are like, I watch this thing on my phone. What the heck are you talking about? It's like, you do have to kind of have some at least headphones on or some pretty good speakers to kind of
crank the stereo up on it.
Yeah, turn it to 11, whatever you got to do.
Right.
Okay, so we were going to talk about kind of our highlights and lowlights just very quickly. I was really struggling to come up with a lot of lowlights. Like I said, I didn't have essentially any problems with the episode. I thought everything worked really well. So, did you have anything else before we get into kind of some of our standout moments?
Lowlights, maybe it was just your next job is doing this at Sid's, right? It was like, oh, all right, I guess we're back to this.
Yeah.
I think that was probably and it's so early in the episode, I think sometimes that will sit with you. And I think when I was reflecting on that first viewing of the first two episodes, I think that was the thing that kept bringing me back. I was like, dang it, we were right. Is this, and I put this in the card, is this just another heist? Because it sure started like it, right? It was just another job.
It was just another mission, another side quest thing.
Yeah. I mean, and so it kind of started off like that. But again, the second viewing, and I kind of let the rest of the dialogue come, let it absorb a little bit more, and then the rest of the episode coming back to it about, the whole idea of being free. And, basically the guys are living under a rock. They're not really paying attention, things like that. Yeah, they're a little cliche. Yeah, they were in the trailers and everything else, but they're very true. And it does evolve this and pull this to more than just another job, just
Yeah.
another heist, right? It's not just another, it's not just another job that we're going to do week over week. It's still probably going to have that flavor to it. We're going to have it. But like Dale is saying in the comments, it's really, we have to really pay attention to what are the things that stretch beyond and kind of through all of those general narratives, or really the narrative that's in between all the jobs, right? That's just kind of flowing in between it. That's the stuff that's what's going to make this series enjoyable for a lot of people, until some of those bigger, flashier moments, or even the things like Rampart at the end, right? Those come about, but there's a lot of things in between. But if I look at lowlights, I mean, that was probably the one. And it is just kind of another job, right? I mean, you kind of go through the motions of it. We've seen it 1,000 times. So is it as exciting as maybe it used to be? Maybe not. Is it enjoyable? Yeah. But is it really ramping you up, getting you excited and rah rah? No, I don't really have those feelings in the first two.
Well, and so here's I hadn't really put too much thought into this. So, but I do wonder, like, it's so on the surface it is another heist. Like, and when I said yeah, it is another heist, I literally meant that. It was.
Yeah.
They could have probably found other ways to kind of convey the message. What felt different about this one was they had to have this heist because really it speaks to the theme of this episode, which is, this whole thing about Omega feeling like she's, altered the lives of her brothers and her wanting to fix that, and provide a better life for them. And Hunter saying, I want to provide a better life for her. And then you've got Sid going, oh, you can just, you buy your way out of this whole thing. So it was almost like, okay, they're still holding on, to quote Kylo Ren, to this idea that they're going to be free, and none of them are right. You know what I mean? Like Hunter, I don't know that he'll ever really be able to provide a normal, quote, life or sheltered life for Omega, as much as I don't think, and this is where Echo was really shining, because he's the only one that kind of gets it. It's like, this is, we could be doing so much more than just sitting here running and trying to go do this heist and go retire somewhere. I don't think he's looking at from the perspective of the Empire is always going to find you. But we know that's the case. We saw it in Andor. We've seen it in countless episodes of Rebels and Clone Wars. It's only a matter of time before these guys catch up with you. And so from that perspective, I think the heist was different because the tone was different. It was more, I would say it was more centric to the theme that they were trying to go at, right? Whether it's just the Empire or even the relationship piece of it, than we had in the first season. A lot of the side missions were just kind of like side missions. They were kind of like busy work. Yes, right. There was character development, that sort of thing. I'm not saying they were throwaway episodes, but this one hit a little bit harder, and I think it sets the tone for, I think, what we're going to see coming up in some of the future episodes. So that's how I would turn the frown upside down. But I know it's more of a smirking frown for you, and not like I cry frown. So
right, and I think again, while we've had the lesson of loss already for the Bad Batch, I think for Omega to get a different take on that there are choices you make and you do not regret them, and that they are important, and that they, while yes, they incur loss and pain and suffering, or, things that you would prefer not to go through, you'd still do them again and again and again because they were the right thing to do. And I think with Echo, I think this was really important between the two of them. I think it was, it was the right thing to do. He said that multiple times, one to her face and one not to, but that he would do it not only because it was the right thing, and that's what he wants to do with the money, right? That was why the money was important to him. It wasn't to go build a better future for Omega. It was really to build a better future for everybody that they could. Because again, we talked about this in the Hype Show. These few guys and this little girl are in a very unique position to be able to do something about it all, which is uncommon for the normal layperson, right? These are the people who are going to inspire the galaxy, much like the Andors will, on more of a ground level, basis. And these guys are excommunicated and basically on the run from the Empire, right? And they're still going to do it, and do it in the face of the Empire. And to Echo that means a lot. Of course, he's got a lot at stake here. And I really liked you could kind of feel the simmer under the surface when they started talking about Dooku in the castle, when they were looking at the job in Sid's parlor, parlor there.
Sorry, you caught me mid swig of my coffee. So okay, so let me I've got a whole list of things that I thought were kind of our good moments, standout moments, before we get into some of the more finer details here. But Kevin Kiner's back. Like, it was the first thing I went to. Is I went to the credits, wanted to see who was doing the music. He's
Solo.
listed. What's that?
Yeah, by himself too. It was great. Yeah. I'm good at this tonight. Yeah. Catching Albert and Bidkoff. Yeah, Kevin Kiner is back with a vengeance.
Okay. I said it's a heist, but at least we're back at Dooku's palace. So getting to see Dooku's palace was kind of cool because we hadn't seen that in, oh gosh.
It's been a while.
Yeah. Trying to think of the episode, but I don't recall which one it was. What about Crosshair not telling the Empire? Because the Empire,
that was a surprise. That was a little bit of a surprise. And I'm glad we got that clarity up front, though, too. And we're kind of skipping all the way to the very end, I guess. But yeah, him not ratting them out is really, really interesting. And it tells you, and I guess maybe you were right to an extent, that there is something about Crosshair that's different. Mm-hmm. And we don't know what Crosshair is doing. Maybe Crosshair hasn't got picked up or whatever it might be, but clearly they thought Tipoca City's destruction was the end of everything and that they were very effective at it. And it's curious that Rampart is so threatened by it too.
Yep. Yeah. It's all going to rear its ugly head later.
Absolutely.
How about Omega's role in all of this? That was interesting. Like, I mean, she's got, now granted, she didn't do a whole lot, but it was very different than season 1, right? She's got her bow. I think at one point he was asking her, are you going to go on this mission? Right? Like, it's
you
like
coming?
her choice.
Yeah. Yeah. Before she was like, you stay with the ship. And now he's like, you're coming, right? Basically, he's ready to go. I liked it, though. We got a little bit of the teenage angst coming through for Omega. We had her, not wanting to study, kind of throwing a little bit of a fit, a little bit of defiance there with Tech, with doing the studies. But I also love that she is so capable. I mean, she is a sharpshooter. I mean, Crosshair who, basically.
Oh, I mean, geez, come on.
Dude, she was legit. I mean, she was shooting those crabs from a mile away and hitting them right where they needed to go. And again, I think, but overall, it's the confidence, right? She knows her, and we got this in the interviews.
Confidence and trust in her team, her teammates trusting in her.
And she trusts in her own abilities too, right? She knows what she's capable of and she knows she can do it. And she, like you said, she's very much a part of the team and they trust her to do her job too. I mean, Hunter's still a little bit surprised, like, why is Omega hanging out from the bottom of the ship?
Yeah.
But, Dad's going to worry sometimes. But I really liked that, though, that she's got a unique place in the group. But you still get this youthful energy and this youthful innocence to her as well, right? Like at the very end of it, she goes, well, it was still fun, right? I mean, there were a couple moments like that are kind of semi-heartwarming and just a little bit like a little bit of a chuckle. And I loved that, especially Echo had one a little bit later on and with Sid too, that I just thought was fantastic.
I really enjoy the time that we got to spend. Like, it was a very interesting pair up. It was Omega, Tech, and Echo, right? And of course we had the meatheads out there blowing stuff up, and that was fun to watch. Don't get me wrong, but the amount of time that they got to spend together, like you said, I thought Tech had like a really good story here.
Yeah,
just getting into his head. I mean, he was vulnerable with his little leg being fractured. I thought it was hilarious the way he commented on that.
Right. So, no.
But I mean, just the time that we got to see more interaction with Omega and Tech and Omega and Echo. And we didn't really get it. I felt like we were kind of cheated on that last season. I thought Echo's arc, we'll talk a little bit more when we get into the characters themselves, but so I'll just leave it at that. I really enjoyed the time they spent there with them.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. I like, we'll talk about it when we get to Tech, I guess.
Yeah. And then there was another theme, right? We got this introduction of Romar as a Serenian character who's kind of been in exile, hiding from the Empire. And what he was doing was trying to preserve his culture, right? Art, history. It was that, I forget what they called it, that container thing. Yeah, it was, and this echoes what we saw.
Yeah.
What's that?
It was a data archive.
Yeah, the data archive of some sort. In Andor, and what they were doing to the local people, right? And this kind of continued washing of the culture, that is a reoccurring thing. So I like that we're seeing the consistency post Revenge of the Sith and just what the Empire is trying to do. It's very fascist. It's very totalitarian in terms of what they're trying to do and wiping out cultures and all this. We've got all kinds of examples in our own personal or real world history where this occurs, but the idea that they're doing this on a galactic level, and even like something like Serenno, I thought that was really interesting to think that of all the places, especially what Dooku was trying to fight for, like to bring it back to Tales of the Jedi, and just how much he was trying to stand up for the local people. Like in my head, especially from that and Dooku Jedi Lost, and we'll get into this a little bit because I want to talk about kind of like the fall of Dooku and just kind of put an emphasis on that. But wow, talk about a huge divergence. I mean, he was bombing his own people, prior to, or looting from his own, or pillaging from his own people. That's a big turnaround. And I think a lot of people that I've heard comment on this seem to be overlooking the fact that he was corrupted by the dark side. So I just want to make sure that we all put this in the context, right? I'm not a Dooku apologist, but he had a lot going on. And so, yes, it is a huge fall. It's a complete 180 in terms of where he's going or where he was. But there is that element of the dark side that makes it easier for us to understand why he would do it, but while at the same time still kind of hold him on I wouldn't say a pedestal, but still hold him as someone who had the right ideas and who was actually not wrong prior to, the dark side.
Yeah, it's really hard to believe that a Jedi would be capable of falling so far and in so many different ways. I think that's the part that's really hard too, especially when we got Tales of the Jedi, we had more content that really solidified that he wanted to look out for the little guy, for the regular people, right? He wanted to do this. And of course, what we knew, like you said, from Dooku Jedi Lost as well. But again, dark side and corrupt in the situation that you're under and the pressures that you're under to win a war. And that you're serving a dark master that has a completely different agenda than you do. And you have a feeling it's there, but you can't defy them at all. I mean, there's a lot of different things. Dooku's character is very, very complex. It would be great to see more of that character and see how, all the things that actually went down that path as they went down. And you could say, well, go watch Clone Wars, but I don't know that we ever really got Dooku's perspective on it. And we're not going to make this a Dooku episode, but I think that's something we're still missing is Dooku's perspective throughout the war. We get a little bit of it in Dark Disciple and some of those, but really nothing that talks about him as a character and what he's thinking, what he's feeling. But anyway, you're right though. I mean, but that they did orbital bombardment on his home is really fascinating though. And I was curious why that was necessary to do it, unless they were trying to obliterate every bit of evidence that may have linked him to Darth Sidious. Yeah.
Yeah. It's almost shocking now. I hate to say it. It's so weird to say that, right? Yeah. To think about these things that he did and went through, like, prior to the Clone Wars, or even after the Clone Wars, I'd still be like, oh yeah, that's just Dooku. And now it's like, you think about it, you're like, wow, it's kind of crazy that he would do these things given how much we know about him now prior to that. So
exactly.
That's good. We're continuing to get these characters developed long after we thought they were kind of long and gone. So, okay. So, and by the way, I just want to mention Hector Elizondo is the actor that plays him. That guy's been in everything.
It was a staple in Chicago's Hope back in the 90s. I think he's been a last man standing here in the more recent years. Yeah. I mean, he's a fantastic actor and he's a voice actor in a lot of Disney series.
Yeah, well. I was surprised. I went through I was just kind of looking ahead of the show. Not that we're going to get into a Hector Elizondo breakdown, but there was a lot of stuff here that I was like, wow, he's done just about everything. So, I mean, add Star Wars to his list now, which I think is great. So.
And it was not just like showing up one, like he'll be on a recurring role for 5 or 6 or 8 episodes or something, not just a one and done. So it's quite a career and a lot of well-known shows in there. And Chicago's Hope was a huge show back in the 90s. Something like 140 something episodes or something like that.
Yeah. So, all right. Okay. So let's just talk about one quick thing. We'll get it out of the way. Won't bring it up anymore. I called it Stun Wars. So here I'll give you my thoughts on it because I don't really have a problem with it. Number one, I think first and foremost, we got to remember that this is now on Disney Plus. It's very accessible to younger children. And while you could still say the same thing about the Clone Wars, when that aired, it's, for me, I think it's a different kind of time. It's a different environment. So I think Disney is sensitive to that. I think that they probably do want their protagonists not just out there mass murdering people, because that's not the show. I mean, I should say mass murdering, but they're out there on a killing spree because these aren't tanks. These aren't droids, right? These are real people. And if we did allow them to just chalk up the body count, even if we didn't show it, it was just kind of implied, I think it would be pretty heavy. So So I think that's where they're coming from. I think that's why they've enabled them to just go to stun for the most part. Now, before we came on the air, we were talking about how Wrecker was just blowing things out of the sky, and I think that's a different kind of, it's a different view, right? Because you're not hitting the people, you're hitting the vehicles. So is it a fine line? Yes. Is it really gray? Yes. Is it subjective? 100%. But I think that's really where they're coming from. My question is, I know people are focusing on the fact that they're using stun, but what does it change in the episode? Like, it doesn't change anything. If you really are being objective about it, it does not change anything. It may change your perception of these people because you feel like they should be the, Rambos out there just slaughtering people left and right. If that's what you want your Star Wars to be, I don't need that for them to tell quality, substantive kind of storytelling, right? So I think that's where it's coming from. I could be wrong, but I think we're going to see more of it, and I think it's just kind of here to stay. So get over it. But what do you think?
Yeah, I've kind of got over it. It is a little bit weird to see it all the time. Look, clone troopers were still dying. I mean, there were still casualties there in a lot of different ways, whether they were in ships or whether they had rocks falling on them or whatever it might have been. Like, there's that violence is violence, no matter if it's a stun or whatever. It's still violence. It's still there. It's still Star Wars. It's all present. I think if we step back into the show a little bit, the question is, like, why do they keep stunning them? And I think the question that keeps coming up is, do you think the Bad Batch do they have any kind of hope that their brothers are still in there, that they would be rescued? I think we've talked about this before, and I think you probably are in that ship of, yes, we think fundamentally that they can still be saved in some way, even if they're not actively doing it, but but I mean, there's a lot of, you could poke holes in a lot of this stuff, just to be honest with you, because, hey, it's Star Wars. You can poke a lot of holes in Star Wars, but I mean, I'd like to think that deep down, they also still don't want to kill their brothers, and it still feels wrong, even though Clone Force 99 doesn't maybe have as much of a connection to them as a Cody or a Rex would, right? But they're still their brothers, right? And I think Omega at some point has had a bit of that, had a bit of that impression on them as well, especially with her time with all of the regs on Camino. But do you think there's anything of that still lingering, or
yes, 100%?
You think it's just like, no, showrunners want to be showrunners?
No. I think that's what it is. I think there's still a lot of that. We brought this up in season 1 about how they weren't killing, that they were stunning. Just to kind of recap what you were saying here, right? Because they felt like those are people that are still good, and they are doing this because of the chip, not because they're no longer the named people. These are the CT people, right? It's very different, but they are those named people are still underneath there, under the helmet. I think there's some of that, and I wouldn't be surprised if, we've got the next episode coming up called The Solitary Clone, right? We've kind of thrown around some theories about, would they take this series in such a way that Clone Force 99 is out there trying to liberate clones and set them free, or redo their chips, or save their own brothers, right? And I think that's kind of, and we maybe saw a little bit of that from Echo, maybe. I mean, he was implying a lot. There's a lot of people that need to be saved. It could be kids, children, innocents, but it could be the clones as well, right? So, if they go that route, I think it completely validates the fact that they're going to stun right now. I wouldn't say they would do that for that purpose. I think the story is the story, but it becomes easier, I think, for people to just get past it if we know that it's and they don't have to be explicit about it. I mean, come on, if this story does take the route of them really focusing on, we got to rescue everybody, we got to take their chips out, we got to save them all, whatever that is, then I think it becomes very easy to kind of draw those lines of conclusion that, okay, this is why they were stunning, because why would they go around and kill these people if they felt like they were doing this against their own will? They're not, they're not like Sith. They're not, what do you call them? The droids, the battle droids, or right, any of these other factions, right? These are their own living brothers and sisters. So
yeah, and I think to give credibility to that comments, I'm agreeing with you. Look to Echo's statement at the very, very end of the second episode when he's saying, he would do all this again for Omega. They could be working for the Empire or worse. And we know what worse means because we've seen it in the clones before with the chips. We've seen the torture. They said it's nightmare. There's a recurring voice that's maddening in their head. And in the moment when Wilco is talking, when Rampart wants Wilco to do something dishonest and lie. Now, I know it was the music and stuff like that playing tricks on me, but it was almost like something clicked in his head and was like, no, I won't do that because it's wrong. And the chip is like active. It says, don't do it, right?
Right.
It was almost like that was still a reminder that it was still there and that was still an influence on some level, and that Rampart is now a traitor. And so that type of mentality, along with Echo's comments, still reaffirm that for me in some ways, that is definitely still a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see why, to go back to Stunning, that they would still want to not punish them for something that their brothers have zero control over.
Yeah.
And Echo, more than anybody, would know, some of that, being back when he was a reg before he was tortured, and he's been through torture where these others likely have not been through what he's been through.
No, not even close. I mean, dang, they plugged him into a couple things at one point.
Yeah. I mean, can we talk about how ineffective his arm is? He needs to go get it replaced, though.
R2 could open
so much. R2 could open anything, man, and Echo can't open anything unless it's unlocked.
Did you see? I think was it this episode? Like one of the episodes, he made a comment about how they did something that only the astromech droids. I forget what it was, but it was almost like a justification as to like, okay, he's still legit, but give him a break, man, because they put some security protocols in place that are preventing him from using that little thing he's got.
Well, I mean, maybe he should not use a screwdriver head and use an actual code cylinder head like R2 does.
Oh, okay. All right, Mr. Technical. No, it's coming.
I've analyzed this. A flathead screwdriver is not effective. He needs a Phillips.
He needs a Phillips. Get him a blowtorch extension, an axe,
he needs a full assortment of torques, whatever.
Yeah. They've got to be a kyber crystal laying around. Slap that in there, give him a little lightsaber that pops up, and let him use that. Something more effective than his little screwdriver tool. There's a lot of potential there. Just think about it. Okay, so let's move into, without going, this is a little bit of a different approach because the episode's been out for a few days now, and I think more than anything, I think we want to spend our time just kind of focusing on some of the bigger
going shot by shot, frame by frame doesn't make a lot of sense for this, I think, in general. Yeah. Yeah,
no, I would agree. But let's talk about Echo since we're kind of already poking fun at him. How did you feel about this? Like, he had something going on for once, which was a big improvement.
Yeah. But
we had some pretty good moments in there, I thought, with him and Omega, and his actions, his comments are really what sends this whole thing in the direction that it does. And it was really great to kind of see how he kind of wrapped that up and came around to not necessarily saying, no, that's not what I meant. It's just, I meant it differently, right? If that makes any sense at all. But
yeah, he's not.
What
really
do you think about his arc here?
Yeah, he's not apologetic at all, right? I mean, and nor should he be. His comments, because he had another comment. She didn't hear the second comment, but can we talk about when Sid calls him a killjoy and just his look of shock?
Yeah, I actually have it in my notes, killjoy, because I
loved it. I mean, he was just like so taken aback from it. But I'm with you. I mean, Echo is still Echo. He's still grumpy. He's still just kind of everything's. He's a glass half empty kind of clone.
Mm-hmm.
But I like it though. I like where he's going. I like that he's becoming more vocal. He's always been pretty vocal, but he's becoming more vocal, and now Omega understands him better as well. That it's not the decisions they're making are not because of her. Well, they are because of her, but in very positive ways, they're because of her.
Yeah.
She is an example of a single person that they've benefited from by putting forth that effort that they did. And Echo is taking that and saying, we can do that on a bigger scale. We have this capability. And if we had the resources, we could be really effective at this if we were able to get people, weapons, and just all the stuff that goes with a revolution.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so he's just saying he's putting all of his experience to the test. And this is why he's different than the others. Yeah. He's not Clone Force 99, by birth and by experiment. And he's at Clone Force 99 by experiment from the Separatists, effectively.
Yeah. I mean, he's a reg still. I mean, there's nothing.
Right. I mean, he's exceptional, and he fits in the team. He's fully capable. I'm not taking anything away from Echo, but he just has a very different perspective and history and experience than the others do.
Yeah.
And that he understands it better than them, what these bad people are capable of. And now the bad people beat the bad people, but they were the bad people funding the bad people in the Clone Wars. And so he's like, guys, this is terrible. This is the worst, right? we got to do something different about this. This isn't cool. We can't sit idly by. Hunter, I know you want to provide a better future for Omega, but Omega's not going to save the galaxy by herself. And keeping her safe and putting our heads in the sands is not going to make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but this is what's going to feed Omega's idealism, right? And her, her want to do the right thing too. She already wants to do the right thing. She doesn't want to sit on the sideline. And I think this is why we're going to see I'm hoping that we see a really strong and great relationship between her and Echo. In particular, I think her and Tech are going to have some times too, based on what we've seen here. But really love that idea that Echo is finally kind of opening up and warming to her in a way. And they have found a way to connect, even if it was a kind of a crappy intro to, breaking down those walls. Now they understand each other and the air is clear.
Yeah. They had a rough start here, but you're right. They want the same things. Right. We see it in the trailer. We heard it. We read it in some of the stuff that we covered before the final hype episode, some of the articles from the producers, some of the interviews, and they were talking about how Omega really wants to save anyone. I guess I shouldn't say Omega specifically, but the theme of this will be if there's somebody out there in danger, they should save them. And we know that's going to be Omega's MO, right? She's going to want to do that. And then you got somebody like Echo who wants the same thing. That is going to be their kind of point of connection. So I'm excited to see where that particular relationship goes and see it build. Because up to now, he's been kind of like the Eeyore of the team, right? Just really, everything's down and I've been, poor me. I was tortured.
I like that comparison. Yeah, I mean, that batch are very much going to become the A-team here pretty soon.
Yeah.
If you can find them and you can afford them,
maybe you can hire
the A-team.
Let's talk about the rest of the members. Thank you. Thanks for the. Somebody did that, by the way.
I know. Season. From last season. Yeah, but now they should do it with stuns.
Okay, you didn't have to say that. All right, let's talk about Hunter. Let's talk about the other clones and maybe some of the actors or the characters, and I kind of get your thoughts on how you felt like they were portrayed. Let's start with Hunter, leader of the group. Really, pretty much the same. I don't know that he did anything that was unexpected. It didn't seem like there was a lot of character development, but at the same time, he's kind of busy. So
yeah, exactly. Not really anything unique about Hunter doing Hunter stuff. But I think trusting Omega, though, is the big one, right? I mean, did you see their relationship has evolved? He still cares. He still is very much a father figure to her. But that there's a little bit more distance, or at least there appears to be more distance right now because they didn't have a lot of on-screen time together with one another. But I think we're seeing her branch out, and so there will be that disconnect with the father figure as she matures, right? I mean, it's just kind of a natural part of growing up, but I think the caring is still there. Clearly, that is his underlying reason for living and for what he does and the decisions he makes is to make sure that Omega is being taken care of. And so it's nice that heart is still there, even if we really didn't get anything else about Hunter in this episode. And I hate to say it, but I mean, I don't know what else there is for Hunter in the series except for that type of role. And so I keep revisiting the Death Watch list, and I'm like, all right, well, Hunter's creeping up the list.
Yeah, he's going to need something else because right now, you're right. His whole, I mean, he's been defined by the fact that Omega has kind of fallen into this, father-daughter relationship, right? And this protection for her. But if they start, as she gets older, he starts getting more comfortable, where does his true purpose lie, right? What gets redefined for him in terms of his purpose? So we'll see. And don't get me wrong, guys. I mean, this is 16 episodes? We got a lot of time here. So
we got ways to go here.
I mean, we're not going to have these monumental breakthrough character moments in every single episode for every single character. It's not what we're saying.
Why not, Albert?
What about, let's talk about Tech. I know we've already kind of talked about the bigger points here, but I felt like he was probably next to somebody like Omega. He had a lot going on, did a lot of things. We got to see the Serenian moment where he was kind of, rethinking about, right. The Serenians are not necessarily bad people. They just happen to have a bad person who became corrupt and was part of the Separatists, but they're just like everybody else. And it's crazy to think that somebody as intelligent as him would have that kind of light bulb moment. But, they were raised to hate the Separatists.
Well, they were raised during they only knew the Separatists, right?
Sure.
So calling it a Separatist archive made a lot of sense for Tech because there was, what else would you call it? And they weren't exactly cultured or anything like that. And they didn't go to art They didn't. They had to go and learn the art and the the customs of everyone that they would be on every planet. No, they're learning the ships, like he was trying to train Omega, right? And you get that comparison there of what he's trying to teach her. But there's also this human element, if you will, or the local element, the people element of things. Right. And that's the part that even Tech has to learn. And he finally had this moment that, like Serenian and Romar is very, clear. We existed before this. We are a people. We are not defined by this radical organization that tried to basically recognize themselves as the speaker for everyone. And look what that left us with. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I think some of those for Tech, and Tech is super smart, right? So he understands and can put it together, but that he actually had himself more of a human moment is very rare for him. And so I thought it was really awesome for that moment to happen. And you actually see that sink in, especially with the generosity that we get from this other character, him coming back and helping him. And he actually shows and expresses concern for Romar afterwards. What of you? He's a survivor, right? But, Tech actually cared a little bit. And so it was nice to see some of the edges get sanded down a little bit, for Tech, but in a very positive way.
Yeah, no, there was a lot of good moments with him there. Let's talk about the meathead, Wrecker. In the like that whole tank episode, I think was my favorite part, but I did enjoy early on when we were introduced to Fee, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But when she told him to go to lift the crate, right?
Right.
And he's like, yes, ma'am. Like, just to see him, kind of fall into that role and being, I don't know, there was something sweet about it, right? He's just he's a big kid. So, but Wrecker's Wrecker. And I still think Jeff was talking about, he said all this in the comments, he said all this just makes it more positive. Makes it more positive for him, at least that Echo dies this season. I still have my money down on Wrecker being the one that's going to pass if we had to just play Death Watch. For anybody that didn't catch the final hype episode. But yeah, what did you think? Anything else that stood out for you from Wrecker?
Well, we had talked about the difference of the relationship with him and Omega as well. That the crazy uncle or the fun uncle, that relationship might change a little bit, and I think we saw that here, right? About the comment about stealth. It's stealth Wrecker. Mm-hmm. We have to do that, and he's like, "Well, I know that, But I mean, still, she's the one that feels like she's got to kind of look out for him and remind him. But you just see that you can call it maturity, but also a little bit of, I don't know, smart aleckness coming through, from the preteen. But I think again, you see that relationship shifting and changing a little bit too, and moving a little bit more towards a Tech and an Echo. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about Omega, because I think arguably, if not more than Tech, more than Echo, you could argue that Omega had quite a development, and we'd expect this, right? I mean, she is, in my opinion, she is kind of the star of the show. Right or wrong, that's kind of how they paint
it. Dan Zare agrees with you. Yeah, he thinks that she's the star of. Dan Zare over on StarWars.com. Him and Amy Ratcliffe had an article a few days ago about who the MVP of Bad Batch was, or MVP of the Clone Force 99, and he agreed with you as Omega.
Yeah, well, and I'm totally fine with that. I don't have a problem with that at all. I do like that she is super sensitive. She's very aware of what's going on. She's got this kind of, I wouldn't say guilt, but she feels like, again, and she says as much, we're here because of me. You guys gave so much. You sacrificed so much to be here. And really, it's a very naive way to think about it, because if you really think about it, had it not been for her, and I think this is what Echo was trying to say, had it not been for her, their lives would have been completely different, and probably in a bad way, right? She doesn't look at it that way. She just sees it as, oh, we're on the run. They need money. They've got to have money because that's the only way they're going to be able to get their freedom. And, this plays out a little bit later when we get to and I want to say everybody's been talking about the Indiana Jones moment in this movie at the very end, right? To kind of go back to
The Last Crusade.
But I think what people are overlooking is the intro. The intro is exactly from Raiders of the Lost Ark. You've got a character running, or characters running out. They've captured something, or they've got some lost artifact or whatever, right? You've got the plane. In this case, it's the ship, the Havoc Marauders, sitting there, and they're fishing. Yeah, it's like, they catch a fish, and they got to go out. I mean, it's just right out of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Right. Now, the one on the end is at the very end of it is like really on the head. So I totally get why everybody's been talking about that one. But this episode begins and ends with Indiana Jones references and callbacks, which
Oh,
we
there
would
were
expect.
tons of callbacks to Star Wars scenes, like in the original trilogy, throughout these episodes too,
Yeah,
all over
no,
the place. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. But yeah, I want to go back. So going back to you, sorry to sidestep there, but the going back to the very ending and her like, and she was so focused, like we've got to get the jewels, we got to get the war chest. So focused on it because for her that was the future. That was not only her future, but she wanted to make amends. She wanted to make things better for her brothers, and
The one thing
she
she can contribute back to the team. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. To repay them in some way. Right.
right. And of all people, right? It was it Echo that told
Yeah.
her like just let it go. Like it's this is not what this is about. There's things in life that are way more important, and in some ways they've gotten this far without having needed all that, and they will continue to do so, right? So long as they have each other, and they're working as a team and all that. So it was a good moment for her. I think it's something that I don't know. I guess the question that I want to ask you is: do you think from this point on, are we going to still see more of that, or do you think Omega has kind of put that to rest, and from here forward, it's just she's no longer going to be thinking about, hey, we need money, or we do need to hide. Is she going to get through to Hunter and say, look, this isn't the way, right? We need to let this idea go of running and hiding and buying our freedom.
Of the latter part, I don't think maybe yet. I think some of it was letting go. I think while it was, literally letting go of the jewels and trying to do that, it was letting go of this guilt that she carries,
Mm-hmm.
that she needs to somehow repay them and let that go. And so from that respect, I think, yes, I think for the most part, it might come back here and there, but I think for the most part, she's got it from Echo, I think at least specifically, who voiced this displeasure, this perceived displeasure with her, and made it very clear that no, that's not it, and this is where he's at, and she now understands him to where I think yes, now they're going to go down that path where she is going to be very much right at Echo's side of saying this is what we need to be doing. Like we don't need to be. She doesn't need to repay the team. The team needs to somehow liberate the galaxy and help them out of this mess and do what they can do, like her brothers did to her. She will follow the example that her brothers get, set, and then we will just do it for everybody. You're on mute.
Dang, sorry, you're gonna have to edit this too. um, what about the kid moments? Like we didn't really get many of these. We did. I mean, there were. I wouldn't say we didn't. There were some in season one. Especially when you think about the doll, and the fruit thing and all that. I mean, that was about as close as we got. But I mean, we had the moment in here, and she had that whole conversation. Excuse me, earlier on when she was talking to Romar about, or he's trying to tell her like it's a kaleidoscope, right? And
Yeah.
it's a fun thing, and like it, like, and for her, it's like you think about it, like she's never really had any of that stuff. And so it was kind of eye opening. I was trying to really kind of dig into and think about, is there more to that message, right? Because he makes a comment about how it's an optical illusion, and I forget
it's
the
fun.
analogy or what he said, but I was trying to draw that to an analogy, and I really couldn't come up with much. But just the idea on the surface that we have a character like Omega who really has never had an experience like this, or really few and far between. I mean, yeah, I think what did the Kaminoans do? I mean, they didn't have a whole lot. Look at Boba. That kid
Right.
was messed up because he had no toys. And now you've got somebody like Omega who has a kaleidoscope, and just seeing kind of like the wonder. And she makes that comment about like, oh wow, are those jewels inside there? It's like how
Well, her
how
comment,
naive and
you mean it's not treasure?
yeah, that's what she said. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, no, I'm right. We're with you though. I think that she doesn't know any of that stuff, but I think it's so important. And that was the message, right? Of saying there is more to life than what you're living. There's so much more to it. I mean, there's, it's not all one mission to the next and doing the mission and finding treasure and building the coffers and, going out, doing whatever across the galaxy. Like it's okay for you to want something more and to be able to, and actually be able to live that life and to be able to enjoy a moment, because those are the moments you can't get back. I think that was just this underlying message. I'm wondering if this is going to carry through the season. I have a feeling probably not, but it was really nice to see this pop up from time to time of this just remembrance and this reminder that it's all about like this. I'm holding up a fake kaleidoscope in my hand, right? But it's all about this. It's all about these are the things that we're trying to do for people so they can go and live lives. They can enjoy time with their family. They can enjoy time playing, being carefree. And these are the things that are just completely unknown to this group of people.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wonder what if anything we'll see the rest of the season. I do like the idea of her finally being able to just have fun. Like, I don't know that she had fun when she was on Camino. And we saw her, I think in the trailer, she makes a comment about, this could be fun, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe this will be, I think that would be a very unique, interesting aspect or twist on all of this is, yeah, they're sitting here fighting for the freedom of the galaxy. And at the same time, she's just trying to figure out ways to provide, contribute to the mission. But at the same time, like, hey, let's like get some fun in this kind of thing, right? I'm a kid. I want to be a kid. I think it's too quick. If they just threw her in as another member of the Bad Batch and she didn't have that, that'd be kind of depressing. I'd like for her to have the opportunity to kind of just be a kid in those moments throughout the rest of the season, even as a contributing member of the Bad Batch.
But I think we kind of see it at the very beginning of the first episode too, when she's slinging on the line, she's going down, she makes a decision, she zips down, is jumping around, she's shooting them, even though she gets into a little bit of a mess. The way that she gets out of it, it gets her just excited. For her, that is fun, right? So you can do the mission, you can still, quote unquote work, but at the same time, the way that she's going about it isn't so, I don't know, it's not so dour all the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Anything else on Omega? I don't want to shortchange her by any means
No, again, she intertwines with the character so much. I think we've talked about her in a lot of different ways, but I am satisfied though with how they're positioning the character. We still get that mix of innocence, but also seriousness.
Mm-hmm.
And we still have that childlike aspect coming through, even though she is quickly maturing already, but before our eyes, we see a huge difference in the character. And I think this is going to pay dividends throughout the rest of the season. So I'm really excited about the direction they've painted her. And I really like Michelle Long's voiceovers for her.
Yeah.
Have matured a little bit, kind of like Ashley Eckstein did with Ahsoka,
Mm-hmm.
right? There is a subtle difference that if you go back and listen to season 1 versus season 2, I have a feeling we'll probably notice them more like we did with Ashley after the fact. But when we're in the middle of it, it still seems so seamless. But there is something uniquely, slightly more mature there, which I really do enjoy.
Yeah. No, I did catch that as well, and I think she did a really good job of giving us another level without going to like full adult. So, which is probably what we need right now.
Exactly.
And then there was Sid and Fee, and we talked about Romar, but Sid and Fee, Sid is, I think Dale mentioned in the comments here just a while ago that maybe we wouldn't ever see her again. I don't think she's going away. I think she's still going to be a part of the team. Yeah. We know that she's got a background from season 1. She's capable. I mean, she's the one that trained Omega on how to use the bow. There's that whole relationship that was stood up between her and Omega and the gambling thing. I don't know if any of that will come up again. It'd be a shame if it didn't in some way, but I think she's going to stick around in some form or fashion, right? If they go on and go do their own thing, they have very few people that they're in contact with when they need help or need advice or expertise or need some kind of direction. So they may just rely on her for that more than, what's the mission of the week kind of thing. So, but for the most part, I mean, she had her little quips in there. She had all the little comments, the little names that she's given everybody, dark and broody, and all that. So still pretty much Sid, and Rhea Perlman does a really good job with that. Wanda Sykes in Fee, we talked about this. I was surprised we didn't get as much from her in this episode.
Yeah, not much.
Not at all.
Hitting on tech, I guess.
Yeah, well, that was kind of weird, but I mean, some guys, everybody likes a sharp-dressed man, as ZZ Top once said. So
that's true.
It could be just love is blind, and as is tech. But for Wanda Sykes, like I didn't there wasn't a big part there, but I do have a feeling she's going to come. They wouldn't name her, they wouldn't talk about her or promote her without her being central in some way. So I guess we'll see how that plays out. I think what was interesting that I was surprised by, and now I need to think more about it because I really haven't had time, but is they said that she's a pirate.
Yep.
So what does that mean for them? That they're gonna, pairing up with pirates is always a dubious kind of effort or experiment. What are you looking at over there? Oh, you're pirates. Yeah, I know. Come on, you're just trying to draw Honda Tanaka into this. But what do you think about Fee and what little we got from her, and any thoughts on where this, she may go here soon?
Yeah, not a whole lot on Fee. It was very much an introductory moment for the character. Again, we don't know that we really trust her a whole lot. Sid seems to trust her quite a bit, but I think it's just a kind of a wait and see character. I think it was interesting enough. Am I excited to see her again? There was nothing that was really a huge breadcrumb that you would want to keep following, for a trail. But
right.
Then again, she will come back up. I think with Sid, I really hope that there's more to Sid. because like you said, she really did get set up really well in the first season. And with her comments in this one, where she says, the Empire is coming, like this is all temporary. They will come, they will shut this operation down. It is temporary. Like this will not sustain. And so Sid has to go somewhere unless she gets offed. And I don't think she will die. I mean, if she did, I guess you have another pirate to take her place, but that seems kind of silly. But I mean, I think, for Sid to become part of the team, or at least a temporary member of the team in some way when the Empire does come, I think is very realistic in this case. And I think that's okay. I like Rhea Perlman's rendition of Sid. I know it's a little bit different for what people are expecting to see from a Trandoshan, but I like the character. I think it's working well. I love the way that she addresses all the clones with the nicknames and everything. So I think the character is great. I'm okay with seeing more of her. I would love to see her more out of her parlor. I want to see her more in the field in action. I think that would just make her that much more interesting than what we have right now, though. I think that's my only criticism, if you want to call it that.
Trying to catch my breath. Okay, so next, let's talk about Dooku again. We don't necessarily need to rehash everything, but I think this episode did a lot for kind of giving us a different perspective of Dooku, and just how far he fell from grace as a Jedi. We got a lot of that from Tales of the Jedi. So, had this episode come out without Tales of the Jedi, I think it would have been a very different kind of take. But now that we have that, Dooku Jedi Lost, all the other stuff that's come already before this, it really does kind of change my perspective. It seems like every year now, as of the last 2-3 years, I keep coming around more and more to Dooku as being like a good guy. Like I'm using air quotes, as a good guy. Like, there really was nothing wrong with him other than nobody was listening to him. And the only person that did was Emperor Palpatine, who completely changed his life forever for the worst and made him one of the worst of the worst. And it's kind of a sad story, sadder than it has been in years past.
Yaddle paid attention, just saying.
Well, what do you think?
No, I think with Dooku, it's a difficult transition to make. I mean, we kind of started off with the relationship with him of really not liking him. He turned his back on the Jedi. Clearly, there was a relationship with Qui-Gon that felt like it had a lot of meaning, and that there was a really deep connection between the two of them. And we got, the different book material, which just strengthened that. And then, like you said, we've got things for Tales of the Jedi where we just keep getting the reasoning behind it all. And it just feels like we're humanizing him. And then we get to this side of it. And again, these are their perspectives, but this is the result, right? I mean, some of it's hard to argue. Like, this is what these people live with. And it is because of what Count Dooku was doing. It wasn't like he was doing something on the side and this was just the way that people viewed him. It's like, no, this is actually what was going on. Yeah. Pretty clear. He had some pretty big war coffers there. I mean, he was collecting all the shinies. So it's tough. I mean, we want something redeemable about Count Dooku. But let's be honest, even with Tales of the Jedi, what he did with Yaddle is not redeemable. Well, everything's redeemable in Star Wars. I have to retract that.
Well, no, you're right. It's not. I mean,
it shouldn't be, right? I mean, at least, yeah. And so it shouldn't be surprising, and we shouldn't keep making excuses for him, myself included in that, by the way. Yeah, of saying, well, all these things, if he just would have been paid attention, if the Jedi Order wasn't so dogmatic, if the Council, if Mace, if, and just keep going down that path. When really, at the end of the day, it's like, well, no, Dooku made a lot of terrible choices, one after another, just like Anakin did, and he did not come around until his master said, go ahead and off with his head. So in the end, he got his justice, I suppose, but everybody else is left still paying the penalty from all the things he did. So it doesn't paint him in a very positive light. And if anything, I mean, the bombardment of Serenno is just sad, and that all these people have had to vacate and evacuate and just completely abandon their home in their city and scatter, just like Romar has here, and just make a living however you can out in the middle of the forest, basically.
Yeah, I said I'm not a Dooku apologist, but I think I do see it differently than you. And I know Mike's in the same boat, because Mike and I used to talk about this all the time. Like, he's real hell bent on, you make decisions and you suffer the consequences, and you're an adult, you make that. And I get that. where I would always kind of toy with him is that, okay, but this is storytelling and it's fictional, and I want these characters like the Kylo Rens and the Dooku's, and I want redemption stories for everybody. I want the good to always shine. I don't need I don't need somebody in like my Star Wars land to always make bad choices and then I just hold them in in a bad light, because that's what we do in reality. And I get what you're saying. I'm not saying, and I don't want to get too express this too much, but I feel like I'm coming around to Dooku, and it is easier for me. Like, as somebody who hated Dooku, again, it's same thing with like the clones from Clone Wars. I never liked them. Through the Clone Wars, I came around to realizing, okay, these guys are not bad at all. With somebody like Dooku, I think I'm starting to come around thinking, okay, yeah, he was not wrong. Yes, he made some bad decisions, but there is the X factor that we don't have here in real life, which is the dark side. And what did that do to him, right? That's what ultimately pushed him, that made his bad decisions even worse. And so for that, I don't blame him, I guess is what I'm saying. I don't blame him from that piece of it. But
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, we want our characters to find enlightenment, right? We want them to recognize their wrongdoing so that they can at least make a different choice or recognize what they did was wrong or bad, so that they feel like, so we at least say, at least they knew it at the end of the day. And they weren't just completely oblivious and just, like you said, just pure evil and making decision after decision, right? And I think Dooku's story is very much that. I think it's very much intended to do the right thing, had to give a little, had to give a little, had to give a little. And over time, you've just given so much, there's not much left. Right. And when you have someone with the influence of Sidious there every moment and pressuring you to do those things, just like he pressured Anakin, I mean, what do you expect? I mean, he's going to continue to push that. And then we bring Asajj Ventress into it. And we say, and then the way that he punished Asajj Ventress and tortured Asajj Ventress. And we can't forget about those either. I mean, he did these things because that's the way you do it, especially if he's evaluating some way to overthrow his own pain of Sidious in the process, right? You apply the teachings you have rather than trying to go and find the light within in order to make a difference, because you don't think you can. So
right, you try to live within the system. Yeah.
So if anything, it makes me sad for Dooku more than just angry and hate the character. I just feel sad for him, which I think is part of the point, is that good people can make poor choices and continue to make them, even though they started with the best of intent. And so I don't dislike. I like the character of Dooku even more because he's so complex now.
Yeah,
and the way that they've done it, knowing that throughout all of these other decisions and all this other material we've had, that Dooku, that idealistic, wanting to do the right thing and take care of people and all that, is still there.
He's so buried, though.
There's just no way to get it out anymore.
Yeah.
But it's still there, right? It's like Vader, right? You felt it with Vader, but Vader had his son. His son or his daughter were only two people in the galaxy that could have done that for him because they had a special connection. Dooku never had that with anybody except Qui-Gon. And so I think, and his sister, I mean, those were only two people that he had it with, and neither are there. Mm-hmm. So who's going to pull him out of it? The answer is no.
There's nobody. Yeah. He's done. Now, Disney, if you're listening, at the next celebration, this coming up, or at least maybe in the US one, that way I can get my hands on this, Dooku hype is at an all-time high. So now is the time to introduce the Dooku jammy set. Remember when he wore his pajamas in the Clone Wars? Like, if they made that same set and sold it as the Dooku pajamas, I think I would have to get it. It's a two-piece, too. So, I mean, it's not a onesie, but it is a two-piece, which I'd be down with.
All right.
Okay, let's finish on Captain Wilco and Rampart.
Because that was unexpected. All right.
Yeah, no, it's not in the show notes. So let's talk about Captain Wilco and Rampart, because this is the piece that at the very end, I was like, wow, this was kind of crazy and shocking for a couple of different reasons. One, I was not expecting Wilco to be I thought he was going to be like a Crosshair or a Cody or just following orders blindly, right? And we don't know yet if this is if it's because the chip is malfunctioning or somewhere he's just got a higher moral code that supersedes the chip. Maybe it's some combination thereof. But the fact that he decided to stand up against Rampart, which was a really bad, when he said that, I thought, oh, he's dead. Like, there's no way he's not going to live. There's no way that Rampart's going to allow him to live. But yeah, I mean, seeing that, and then it confirmed that, at least in that moment, it definitely confirmed that Rampart did not know that Clone Force 99 had lived, which reinforced the idea that Crosshair didn't tell them if he has already rejoined the Empire, right? We still don't know. But all of that within that moment, and then when Rampart wiped him off the face of this planet, really, I mean, threw him off. I mean, shot him and he fell to his death. I mean, it was pretty shocking to see that. But that is a short line. Like, I don't know what Rampart's thinking. Like, think about how many people is he going to have to kill, because these guys are going to keep popping up. So what is his end goal here? Like, if he's trying to, snuff this out, subvert it, make it not known in whatever way he can, like, that is a short runway, dude. Yeah, I don't know I don't think he's going to make it out of the season. Like, at some point it's going to catch up with him.
Yeah, there's a couple things. I think one, he's just buying time because
exactly,
like you said, he's got to go address this, but he doesn't want anybody else to know. But I think the other one is like the amount of fear he has of Tarkin is very real, I think. And I think that came across as, if Tarkin learned of his, what do you call it, a misstep, the consequences would be dire effectively. And I don't know what exactly that would be, but Tarkin, we know, is ruthless. And so his career would be over, if not his life would be significantly shortened. But it just speaks to, both of those things, though, of saying, I got to get on this quickly because there will be no quarter for me, because I went and destroyed. And part of me is wondering now, like looking back on it, was the cloning facility still of value to the Empire? Or was it a casualty of trying to wipe out Clone Force 99? Now, that seems a bit silly saying it out loud. Clearly there was value to it, so they wanted to destroy the cloning facility, and the Clone Force 99 would have been the other way around, right?
It was serendipitous at most, but I mean, it was an opportunity, and so they took advantage of it. Yeah,
exactly. So, but yeah, the fear of Tarkin, the fear of the Empire, I think in general, the fear of what the Empire is capable of, and now that you see the officers starting to exhibit that fear as well of their superiors, and we know what Vader's capable of whenever he gets disappointed in anybody. I mean, it's palpable now, and I think it's very real. And I think it was really important to see this early on too, that within this kind of year one-ish of the Empire, this idea of ruling with fear and with an iron fist, even internally, has taken root already. And it is already growing within the Empire itself. And so I think that's very important, because that's what's going to, those people will then, just like we were talking about with Dooku, that's the behavior to learn behavior. Well, if that's the way that they're going to treat me, well, that's the way I need to treat everybody else to get results too, because my neck's on the line every single day. There's no fun in my job. No, I'm going to keep everybody in line, because it's kind of a life or death decision almost every day.
And this is exactly what Palpatine wants. It plays right into the way he runs things, creating chaos, creating that fear. That fear feeds the dark side, which empowers him even more. I mean, it's a perfect situation for him.
And what it does, though, to link it to Andor, of course, is that this empowers eventually, when somebody is able to organize and stand up, it empowers those folks too, because then they can lean on the brutality and the exceptional circumstances that they're under, because they can see them firsthand. They know what they're going through now firsthand. And it empowers a rebellion to, or any kind of resistance to rise, and they're able to organize that more freely. So I'm wondering how that will play into what we see with Rex, or maybe with Cody, or maybe with Crosshair. How all of those stories come to light, and whether those start to link up a little bit more, maybe in much smaller pockets than what we had with Andor, or what we've seen in the rebellion, of course, with Rogue One. But do we start to see very, very small pockets of it, even within a year after the Empire's formation and really in their growth period?
I think we do. I mean, we got Bail Organa shown in one of the trailers, right? So,
right.
I mean, that's going to be the easy onboard there. So, yeah, I think you're right. I think we're going to see more of that, and that's probably where the story goes. I mean, it turns more into side missions to get money, and more into how do we help what is not known as the rebellion yet, but just stick it to the Empire and make lives better for people that are falling under the grip of the Empire, if you will.
Yeah, it's really curious. I mean, because we're a good 15 plus years removed from A New Hope,
right?
And so we're a good 10 years removed from Andor right now. So how do these things, what does that gap look like, or what does that distance look like, and how do they want to handle that? And I think that the comments that we had read when we did the final hype show of, how do you make those connections, but you still make them in a way that they're still very nebulous, and they don't have a direct tie, but you can definitely speculate and kind of point at it and be like, I think, that something over there that kind of makes sense, right? So I'm excited about more of that starting to come about. But again, they have to have to be careful though. You don't want to do too much of it because again, we're like in year one-ish here of the Empire. Let's not get too crazy. We're not in Rebels territory or anything like that yet, or even Andor territory. So we have to keep that in check. And unfortunately, that also means that we're probably going to see a lot of losses still on the Bad Batch or on the quote unquote good side, good guys side.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I don't. They're not going to go full fledged, saviors
Rebellion.
for the galaxy.
We're not having rebellion or saviors of the galaxy. Yeah, nothing. Right
but
away.
if the opportunity comes up in their own interest, right, or just in their own circles, then I think they'll definitely take advantage of that, especially if it's tied to the clones in some way, tied to old relationships that they had from the Clone Wars, right? I think those are going to be kind of like the obvious, we need to do something kind of things, more than, this particular group out here that's just another planet is being oppressed by the Empire. Okay, so what? There's a lot of that going on. There's really nothing in it for them, and there's no connection to them. I don't think they're going to take that mission, but they'll take all the other ones, I think.
Exactly.
So I guess the last thing I had on here is, going into episode 3, which again we talked about is being titled "The Solitary Clone." And maybe was there anything that set that episode up? It does feel like it's going to be a standalone. I don't think there's going to be carryover of any sort from necessarily, on the nose kind of carryover from this first 2 episodes. But did they set up anything there, or have they set up anything for some of the broader kind of story threads that we were kind of hypothesizing about and theorizing about in our final hype episode?
I think if anything, it gives us the opportunity now to jump straight in the crosshair and to see what's going on here. And we've set that up perfectly now of saying, okay, we can leave the Bad Batch, maybe not for the whole episode, but we don't have to focus on the Bad Batch. We can switch and focus on Crosshair and even bring Cody in at that point. I mean,
yeah, for sure.
But again, I think this might be a Crosshair specific episode. If he has not rejoined the Empire, then this episode title and everything makes a lot of sense, right?
Lines up. Yep.
Exactly. So what does that journey look like? So I think this might be a Crosshair centric episode, and we are spending most, if not all of our time with Crosshair, which I think is actually pretty exciting. I like that idea. Give him a true character piece, if you will, as much as you can get in animation, I suppose. But I mean, I think it would be fantastic if we can do that.
Yeah, I mean, if it is focused just on him, like even if it's the first part of it and it ends with Cody of all people showing up to recruit him again or something, but seeing what his life is like, right? And again, I'm just making stuff up here, but if we get flashbacks or even if it's just voiceovers of things that have happened, either in the Clone Wars or in last season of the Bad Batch, whatever it is, but just how is he reconciling all of this, right? Is he okay with it all? I mean, he went through quite a bit. I mean, I can't stress enough that last moment when they're all standing there after they've been trying to kill each other literally all season, half of the season anyways. He's standing there with them, and they all shared that moment of watching their homeworld, Camino, just sink into the ocean. Right. And, the opportunities that he could have turned on them at any one of those points, you brought up that great moment with Omega and him and kind of having that little discourse, right? That's got to have screwed with his head, right? That the person that's in him, outside of the clone, outside of the chip, that had to have an impact on him. And just being able to see him as that solitary clone, again, maybe we're reading too much into it, but seeing him kind of go through that process of trying to figure out, okay, who am I? What am I doing here now? He's not said anything to the Empire. He clearly could have done that, right? He chose not to. But why is that? I'd like to know why that is. All of this, for me, at least paints this idea that if he's not told the Empire, then I think there is still that good in him. And I mean, I don't know anybody that doesn't want a reunion, because we got to see them, how effective they were together when they were reunited towards the end of that season.
Absolutely.
Right? The band was back together. So I don't think anybody is out there vying for him not to rejoin Clone Force 99, but I would love to see bits and pieces here that kind of set that up for, here's the path, or at least set the path on that course, so that we could see him reunite with the group in a positive way, mid-season, the very end of the season, whatever it is. Coming together to really save the other clones, right, is a really good motivator, I think, for him as well. But
yeah, and we definitely know that he's going to sync back up with the Empire at some point, right? Presumably that's how he gets in touch with Cody, or they come across in those scenes that we've seen in the trailers. So it seems realistic that he will go back to the Empire. But I'm with you, man. How emotional would that be to have him on his own, but to have voiceovers and just replaying those scenes in his head and hearing Omega's words? and just hearing the care and hearing his own responses, right, and being able to then just see what that reflection looks like, and just how he interprets it and how he's handling all of that. Now, I mean, we could all probably guess how he's going to handle it, right, and how he's going to suppress it, like many males do, I guess, in general, especially ones that are not emotionally mature, like the clone, but like Clone Force 99.
All the clones,
really,
yeah.
Oh, yeah, all the clones. Yeah, they're really not super emotionally mature because they don't have. Well, I take that back. I don't think that's a fair statement, but I think Clone Force 99 probably less so than the rest of the clones who have had a lot.
They're not like the Rexes or the Cuts exactly. And all those guys that kind of understand even got it.
Yeah, your Jessies and your Fives and everything who have kind of been through that. These guys live in their own little universe. It's a much tighter group, a very different atmosphere.
Yeah.
But I think it would be great to see that reflection and actually have some of those moments. And again, just see it in him, because he's such an emotionless character that you just want something to come across, just like Tech, right? We had a glimpse of it. It's there. They're all capable of it. It's giving into it a little bit and just letting yourself feel. I think would be really, really cool to see that with Crosshair, even if he doesn't show it to his family, right? But just to know it's there.
No, it's
like,
there.
Oh, yeah. Buddy, you can do it. And just cheer for him a little bit more. And again, kind of bring him back and kind of build him up a little bit more too, than where we've had it, where he just keeps like Dooku just keeps making decision after decision. You're like, come on, man.
Yeah.
You can do it. We believe in you. You're
still holding on.
Yeah. Just let go. But don't kill it though, Crosshair. It's fine. Don't kill it. Just let it go.
Mm-hmm. Well, if it turns out to be that episode, you won't hear the end of it from us. If not, we will never mention it ever again. So we'll see.
I remember, we just cut this part out of it.
Yeah, we'll just cut it right out. You can't stop us. We'll go back and repost the audio if we need to with it cut out.
No, that's entirely too much work. Sorry.
Okay, that's a lot of work. Yeah, we're both lazy. Okay, so we'll end it there. I mean, overall, again, I think these first two episodes did exactly what they needed to do. Reintroduction to the characters, kind of see where some of them have grown, where some of them have not. I thought we had some good moments that made up for the lack of those moments that we had in season 1. You know what I mean? With the Tech and Echo and Omega kind of circle there.
Agreed.
And and it brought back the Empire, at least at the very end, in a real way. And knowing that Rampart is still out there, he's definitely a force. And his time is probably limited. So we'll see how all this kind of plays out. I don't know that we really truly understand where all of this thing is going just yet, but that's okay. We'll get there. We got 14 more episodes to kind of tell that story.
Yeah, we got like 2.5 more months, so we got time. So we'll let it simmer.
Yeah,
we're bringing it up to the boil still, so we got time. I went through though. I think it's a good starting episode. The more I thought about it, the more I kind of let myself be able to be a little more open to it. Liked it a lot more. A lot of the smaller character moments, I think, is what can make this series really great. Again, fantastic music and sound design just across the board. I mean, it felt like Clone Wars, and that's a huge pot. And that's not waxing poetic for the Clone Wars. It was just, you feel like you are in that galaxy. Like you're in that time frame still. And it just feels so connected, and you just feel like you are an extension of what has come before it. And there's a continuation of the story in a different way. And just like Rebels ended up being, right? And so I think when we see this and we put Rebels behind it, it all feels so connected, which is always a great feeling in Star Wars, especially when we've struggled to have that feeling in some ways. And so I really like where this is going. I think episode 3, we'll see how that one pans out a little bit, how we feel with having one episode, and we'll see where it takes us. But I think off on the right foot, maybe not the most exciting, right foot, but I think a quality right foot at the very least.
Yeah, I would agree. Well, thanks to everybody that came out to the live show. Jonesy, this is the moment where I ask you, do you have any shout outs?
And we absolutely do. We had a fantastic group tonight. A lot of chat. Of course, a lot of it was about the states of Wyoming, Mississippi, and Texas, but that's okay. We love all these states too. But yeah, so if you are listening to the podcast, of course, we do a live stream, usually on Sundays and Thursdays, but today is Saturday, of course. So cantinacast.com/YouTube. Go ahead and subscribe, hit the little bell, and you will be notified anytime that we are going live. You can come out there and chat with us, just like Steph, Dale, Jonathan, Lauren, Sky, JJ Skywalker, Rob, Kathy, Music Train, Qui-Gon J, Jeff, Hard Countered, all did this evening. Fantastic, lively chat. We certainly appreciate it. A lot of on discussion, on topic talk as well. We didn't maybe bring as much onto the screen tonight as we were going through it, but man, Lots of great chat. Thanks everyone so much for coming out. We really did enjoy it. If I missed anybody, my sincerest apologies. We know there's a lot of people lurking in the background as well. So we see you back there. Thank you for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. It means a lot to us.
Yeah. And if you're a lurker, that's okay. We like lurkers. One of us may be a lurker ourselves. You don't know. It's that guy right there. Yeah, we're both pointing at each other.
It's the one on the left, yeah.
One on the right. Yeah.
My left, your right, right?
It's all about perspective. It's all about your certain point of view.
Oh, boy.
Okay, and on that note, we'll be back tomorrow with the Patreon episode. We'll come back next week for our breakdown of episode 2 or episode 3, I should say, of season 2. And we got a lot more coming up. We've done a really good job, I think, of planning everything out. So pretty excited about some of those things coming up here very, very soon. And yeah, we'll leave it there. We got the new credits too. So if you hadn't had a chance to watch them, you'll see them right now.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.